So there was a point that you heard in the documentary where there was briefly a discussion we had, and they said, would you be opposed to shooting a film in New York? And I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that would be a terrible idea. And I think one of the things that, like, and watching that documentary is, you know, it's great, because we have to make something that the film is pretty insane and fantastical, but like, I don't think any of that would have worked if like the jumping off point wasn't right, and it kind of needs to be like in this setting and a very sort of real world that people like recognize, and part of that is just the sort of suburban houses and coffee shops and venues, but I think just and it gave it such a kind of interesting tone, and there's great kind of culture clash within the film in terms of Scott Pilgrim as a Canadian hero, and you know most of the extras are American, and I hope you appreciate as an audience that a Canadian lead beat the crap out of Captain America and Superman. We didn't know about Captain America at the time, but it's a bonus. So I think that was really important to me, and you know, the artwork in the book is so beautiful and makes like, you know, like Brian said, makes Toronto look mysterious and magical, and you know, it was all here, like. Was pretty much like every location that was drawn in the book, we shot in a real place like you saw, and you know, we shot in Suites there, Stephen Carpenter as well. The only people who said no, and I'd like to give them a big boo, Shoppers Drug Mart. Shoppers Drug Mart did not want to know.
Find the fencing fee!
I have no idea what you just said.
We'll assume that's a compliment. I mean, it's true that somehow this. What I loved about the books, one of the things I loved about the books when I first read them is they immediately seemed totally true to my experience in Toronto. And even when, for somehow, and I'm not even sure how, all the fantasy stuff and all this sort of manga references seemed totally integrated within the characters. And then you were able to go back to reality right away. I'm not even sure how that worked. Did you ever worry when you were making the film that somehow once you started that first fight that it would just disappear all the reality and would just turn into a fantasy? You know what I mean? It seems this amazing balance of the book.
No, here's what happened. I'm a really fucking good writer, and Edgar's a really fucking good director.
Probably the hardest part of the film in the script writing and making it and just kind of editing and getting the tone right, which Brian does in the book, but I guess in the book you accept on the page people fighting a little more than you do in like, you know, a Hollywood comedy.
A Michael Cera movie.
And one of the trickiest bits is at the end of the Patel fight, because in the book, you know, when you come to volume 2, there's a certain amount of like resetting that it can go back to the start again and build up to the first fight. But we had to create a reality whereby, you know, the characters, it's just accepted that people fight. And that's why, like you said, the whole idea of the musical thing of just, once they start fighting, it's just like, this is a musical where people sing. And that was the idea of that. But that was definitely the toughest thing, is that once, you know, and it was interesting, like we did test screenings for this film where people would have no idea what was coming. And the reaction to Patel, and particularly when he started singing the Bollywood thing, they, you know, like, thought we were fucking bananas. In a good way. But, so that was the toughest thing, keeping that kind of balance of reality. And that's, you know, sort of we allude to that in the, talk about the documentary. Brian certainly does that in the book. You know, in a sense, like, you're watching a film that's like Scott Pilgrim's version of events. You know, Brian said an amazing thing about Scott Pilgrim that, you know, you're watching the movie inside your head. So I kind of think, for me, like almost like the part when he kind of drifts off into his dream and walks into the school corridor, you've left reality and you're now watching kind of Scott Pilgrim's unreliable, like, version of events.
Did you ever feel, I mean, this is one of the first films that I can think of that it was being made almost while the original source material was still being created. Do you want to talk a little bit about that back and forth between the writing? Because, you know, you were starting to work after the first book, right?
Yeah, we started right in 2004. Like, I think he called me like 6 years ago today. Well, I'm just making that up. But yeah, it was like roughly like December, January 2004, 2005. And we chatted. We chatted a little bit at first, and I went back alone into the book, and then it kind of became intertwined. Eventually they wrote a draft of the script around the time I finished the third book, and then it's so hard to disentangle it now. Like we've become friends. We've become like I've bounced stuff off Michael, the screenwriter, and it's just I've stolen stuff from them. They've stolen they adapted stuff from me. And especially like by the time we got to the sixth book, like there's stuff we couldn't remember what was in the